we were both happier in a way. Not that we weren't happy before as a monogamous couple, but it really made our relationship better in a lot of ways, being able to spread the love, if you will, with other people.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from across the entire spectrum of non-monogamy to hear their funny, sexy, and fascinating stories as they take us on their journey. We always strive to bring guests on the show who have a healthy and positive approach to non-monogamy.
However, everyone approaches it a little differently. And at its core, our show is about hearing, highlighting, and learning from the different experiences and approaches people have. With that in mind, it is important to remember that the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of our own.
So sit back, relax, and just accept the fact that your time with us will be spent in an awkward turmoil of laughter and arousal. We should also let you know that this podcast will hopefully include some explicit language.
If that kind of thing offends you, we suggest you keep listening until it no longer does. If you're under 18, you either need to stop listening or go get your parents and you can listen as a family. The choice is yours. Enjoy!
Hello and welcome to episode 17. Today we have an exciting interview with our first solo person.
A solid solo person?
Yeah. Our first solo person. This happens to be an interview with a male that's practicing solo polyamory, which we learn a little bit more about, and it's a really fascinating interview.
Yeah, we had a great time talking to him, and he reached out to us via Twitter, so we wanted to thank him for that.
Yes.
Also, if you happen to follow us on Twitter, you heard us bragging about an announcement that we wanted to make this week.
Some exciting news.
So, in our very first episode, we talked about a company called STD Test Express and how we really like them and we used them for the last few years, and it's an awesome service. And we mentioned, that we had some links on our website, but there really wasn't a whole lot of incentive to drive you guys there other than it's typically cheaper than going anywhere else to get your test done.
Well, and it's a little more private too, and they're an awesome company. And
it's easier. So real quick, just to reiterate for anybody who didn't listen to that episode, basically with this website, you go on, you fill out you make a profile and you pick which tests you want done. You basically print off this form and take it to like a LabCorp or a Quest, any one of like the national labs in your area. You can basically do a walk-in. You show up, they take some blood, and then within like 2 or 3 business days, you get your results uploaded online to your website, to their website, and you have
to your account.
So it's an awesome service. When we did it last time, I think we got our results in like 12 hours. It was the next
really
day.
Fast.
It was super fast.
And if there's ever any need for a follow-up with a doctor, they recommend all of that information to you and provide details of what you should do next.
Yep. So anyway, long story short, their VP of Strategy and Partnerships reached out to us the other day and said that they wanted to offer us a $15 coupon for anybody who uses our link, and then they gave us a new website to use. It's STD Test Express /normalizing, or again, you can go to our website and get all the links and everything. But so they offered a $15 coupon for anybody who does this through our link, and we asked them, hey, we get $20 if people use our link. If we give up the $20, can we add it to the discount? And so we were trying to get you guys $35 off because the $20 is great, but we figured if we can drive more business their way, we really like their service and honestly just wanted to help support them and get you guys a better deal.
Yep.
So he came back and said, no, keep the $20, but we're going to give them 15% off. So now instead of $15, it's 15%, which on an average test panel is going to be probably $180 to maybe $215, $220, depending on your insurance and which test you pick. So that's going to get you pretty close to $30, $35 off. that was also, I wanted to mention, they do take insurance. So if you have good insurance, it might even drive your costs lower than that. So
sure.
Anyway, we just wanted to make you guys aware that this is now something that there's a really awesome incentive for you guys to go and do this. At least give them a try. It's 15% off every time you do it until the end of the year. And
who knows, maybe we can re-up then.
Yeah, and that's just, they're really pushing hard on the marketing this year. So we wanted to say thank you to them for reaching out to us, and thank you to you guys for giving them a try and supporting them. They're a fantastic company. They've been awesome to work with.
Yeah,
and we're
super easy.
And we're super excited about that, and we're super excited to be sharing this with you guys. So
before we jump into the show, I just wanted to mention that, as Finn said, you can find us on our website at normalizingnonmonogamy.com. The resources page there has links to the STD Test Express, but you can also contact us via our website. You can find us on Twitter and on Castly under the same screen name, which is NNM Podcast.
Yep. And I just really quick wanted to say, we didn't tell you that long story to try and brag about it. It was
or
really
convince you.
A little bit to convince you. But it was really mostly to try to show like how supportive they have been of us and of the community, and they're a fantastic company, and just the negotiation on that was pretty awesome. We were never expecting that. So
we're trying to convince you that they're a great company to work with. That's all.
And it's a great service that we've used for a couple of years, and we love it. So. Yes. One other thing I realized, I misspoke earlier when I gave the website. It is www.stdtestexpress.com/normalizing. And also, if you can't remember that, you can go to normalizingnonmonogamy.com/test, and you'll find the same links. So now,
on to your regularly scheduled programming.
Thank you, CJ, for coming on the show and reaching out to us via Twitter. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited too.
So I guess we don't know anything about you. Do you mind just maybe sharing a little bit of background about who you are and what your relationship dynamic looks like right now, just as a high level view?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm almost 43. I'll be 43 this year. And I've been polyamorous for almost 3 years. It'll be 3 years in September. So had no experience with non-monogamy prior to that. I'm from Arizona, and I'm currently my wife and I started the poly journey together, but we're currently in the process of divorcing for several different reasons. None of it related to poly specifically, but, with non-monogamy, that tends to bring out other areas in relationships that you need to work on, right? So
Sure. Yeah, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thank you.
I guess we were curious, so how did you and your wife get started on the journey down the poly path?
Yeah, it's quite the story for sure. So we both grew up in a very, very strong religious background, Christian background. And, monogamy was all we knew. It's beat into us from day one. Well, I shouldn't say it was beat into us, but, it
strongly
was very strongly recommended that, you get married to one person for the rest of your life, and you never know anyone else in a sexual way, and you never deviate from that path. And if you do, it's because you get divorced and you marry someone else or what have you, but that's also discouraged. So,
right, absolutely.
There's never even an idea that there would be anything else than monogamy. So I think it was 2011, we had a crisis of faith, which is a completely whole different story. And we left the church altogether, left religion really altogether, and we started exploring what it means to be someone who has no religious underpinnings to hold their life together. We joined a group, an online community of people who had also left religion behind. And there were a few people in that group who were either exploring polyamory, or various forms of non-monogamy, or there were a couple of people in the group who were currently non-monogamous.
Okay.
And had triads or quads they were actively involved in.
So that was kind of your first exposure to non-monogamy, correct?
It was, yeah, very first. We never heard anything about it prior to that at all. Didn't even know it existed.
Okay. And so this was like a group that had kind of came together as sort of like a support group after leaving like the church? Is that okay?
Yep, that's exactly right. And it's still active, and I'm still a part of it. I don't go on there very much. It's mostly active in the Facebook group, and I check it every now and again. But yeah, I'm still part of the group, and good community of people. I love them to death.
And so you started being exposed to different dynamics as a couple, right? Like you and your wife were started to be exposed to different relationship dynamics within the group?
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of different relationship dynamics, anywhere from there were a lot of LGBTQ folks in the group, and the discussions around non-monogamy specifically were good and bad. Some people were very much for it. Some people were very against it. Some in between. Okay. And but yeah, it's definitely a much more open-minded culture than we were raised with, at least.
Yeah. And how did those early conversations between you and your wife go when you started seeing all this? Was it like, were you guys shocked by it, or were you guys pretty open to it right out of the gate?
We were shocked by it at first, but then as we started to think things over, we came to realize more and more that monogamy really is a kind of a religious idea, if you will. It's very, very grounded in a culture that's heavily steeped in religious culture. So there's that subculture that really dictates a lot of the morality that we know.
Right.
So we started to explore what life would be like if there was no religious moral backdrop.
Sure. Mm-hmm. And when you guys first started talking about it, was it in the context of finding other partners, romantic partners, or was it more of a sexual exploration?
It was kind of both, to be honest. We talked about it in both aspects. We after we left the church about a year before we started embrace non-monogamy, we talked about it for over a year prior to that. And then it was actually my wife who said, "Oh, hey, I think we should do this." I'm like, "Okay, cool. I'm totally fine with it." And it started with her being actually turned on by the idea of me with another woman.
Okay.
So there was definitely that overarching sexual aspect to it at first, but we explored both.
Yeah, that's interesting too, because that's not typically the origin story you hear. It's usually not always, right, but it's a lot of times it's the man wanting to have another woman, or maybe the man wanting to see his wife with another man. But it's rare to hear that a woman wants to see her husband with another man. So I find that really fascinating. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. I was actually very surprised, having known her for as long as I did. I kind of had to pick my jaw up off the floor, I'll be honest.
So how did those first few months go then when you decided to try it out?
It was interesting. It was very difficult at first, a lot of growing pains, as far as we didn't really have jealousy per se, but there was definitely, what's the acronym? FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yeah.
So when we opened our relationship, things happened for her right away. And that seems to pretty much be very common in non-monogamy, especially with the online dating apps. Mostly ladies get all the action, especially with dick pics, and guys get crickets.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I might rather have crickets than dick pics.
I I would say so. I would prefer that too. I'm as straight as they come, so I'm not offended by a guy's dick pic, but I prefer crickets. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine a fair amount of the women would probably prefer.
Yeah,
the
I would
crickets
actually
too.
kind of agree with that.
But,
Yeah.
So
yeah,
when you guys started doing this, were you mostly meeting other people from this online community, or did you start looking outside of that to different websites and apps?
Yeah, it was definitely other websites and apps. The community that we were a part of was just strictly, a support group for people who have left religion, even though there was discussion about polyamory and different forms of non-monogamy in there. It was definitely not designed for meeting people and dating.
Okay. And even though when you guys originally started talking about it, it was her wanting to see you with another woman, you said the first things that started to happen were for her. I guess how did that work out?
He said there was a little bit of fear of missing out, right? So that was probably the challenge you had to deal with.
Yeah, definitely was. Yeah, my experience with it was when she got a couple boyfriends right away, and she was spending tons of time with them and away from me and the kids. There was definitely that new relationship energy was just exploding for her, right?
Yeah.
And I guess with fear of missing out, there is a little bit of jealousy at the heart of that, right? Because you want to experience what they're experiencing, and I felt like she wasn't paying as much attention to me as, or that she was giving me enough opportunities to schedule nights that I might be able to date people and stuff like that. So there was definitely the fear of missing out. And I guess there's a little bit of jealousy underneath that as well.
Yeah, it sounds like it was a bit of a time imbalance, maybe.
It was. Okay. Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, she got one boyfriend right off the bat, and a couple of months later added another, and that was kind of how it was for the next few months after that. So,
and were you guys ever able to sort of equalize or find an equilibrium?
Not totally. Not totally. I did eventually meet someone that we clicked right off the bat, and we went on several dates, and we did become sexual. We were together for a couple of months, but it was still very hard to schedule things with her because the kids were younger, and there wasn't a lot of communication on that aspect from my wife as far as, oh, by the way, I'd like to schedule this. She just kind of already had stuff planned on her schedule, and so that caused some pain points because, I wanted to spend time with the girl I was seeing, and there wasn't really any time allotted for that. So
sure.
Yeah. During this time, did you make special nights at all for you guys, for your relationship?
Yeah, we did. We tried our best to at least schedule something once a month or once every other week to try and work on our relationship and talk about how things were going and discuss what we could do better and what we'd like to see change. So yeah, there were times for that, or just to have fun together without having to do talking business per se,
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
It sounds like there was obviously some hurdles and hiccups early on. As you guys worked through those, were you guys able to find, that there were some benefits that you were seeing to your relationship, and that you started to find a place where you were both sort of having your needs met within the poly space?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It eventually evened out. We really grew a lot in our communication.
Okay.
We saw huge strides in our communication. We were both happier in a way, not that we weren't happy before as a monogamous couple, but it really made our relationship better in a lot of ways, being able to spread the love, if you will, with other people.
Sure. Right. Like almost made the time you spent together almost more special in a way, or more because you're spending a little more time apart, it sounds like.
Yeah, it definitely did.
So once you guys sort of hit that equilibrium point, or that kind of got into the rhythm of things, did you guys have a pretty good period of, you finding other women and her finding other men, or was there ever a point where you guys were dating other couples, or how did it sort of look after you guys sort of found your groove?
Yeah, after we found our groove, we never really dated couples together. We always dated separately. After 2 months of dating the one woman, we eventually parted ways over some other stuff that was going on in both of our relationships. Just time constraints on my side, and things were going on in one of her relationships. So we ended up parting ways, and we are still friends, by the way. I started seeing another woman just on a casual basis. A little bit of a background on me, even though I gravitate more closely to polyamory. I'm kind of more of a relationship anarchist, so I don't like to really put labels on what my relationships are. I'm open to more of a casual friends with benefits kind of thing, as long as it's somebody that I have a really deep connection with and it's a close friendship. I've got friends that I'm attracted to, but we're just platonic. And then other people that I'm more fully romantic and maybe even sexual with. So I try not to put limits or definitions, at least not too hard a definition, on relationships.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, I started seeing a woman that I met on OkCupid just on a more friends with benefits situation. And then a few months ago, she met a guy that she decided she wanted to be monogamous with again. So we ended our sexual relationship, but we're still friends. And since then, I haven't really had too much success in the way of meeting other women. Mm-hmm. But I am currently, I have been on 4 dates with a woman that I connected with in one of the Facebook groups in our area. Okay. And so that's been good. And I have very high hopes that will turn into a long-term relationship. So
that's really exciting.
Yeah. I was going to ask, are you planning to, I guess, continue to be poly moving forward? Is that what you find works for you? Yeah,
absolutely. I'm planning on being solo poly from this point on, not really having a primary relationship per se. Even though I'm very open-minded for what the future looks like, I'm not opposed to having a primary live-in partner again at some point. But for me right now, I feel like just being a single person and dating multiple people works best for me in my situation. But I definitely will never go back to monogamy. It just isn't, it's not who I am.
Yeah.
Sure. And if you don't mind us asking, is your wife still pursuing the polyamory side of things, or has she decided that maybe monogamy was more suited for her? Yeah, for her, the man that she's currently dating, he's been in the poly world before as well, but they've decided to be monogamous together. Okay.
Yeah, so that's been kind of interesting. It really has. Yeah. I don't quite know how to describe it.
I was going to say, I'm sure there's a lot of conversations that have been had throughout this whole process for you guys.
Yeah, there has been. Yeah, I was very surprised that she decided to go back to monogamy, but it's recently come to my attention that her reasons for becoming polyamorous and going the route of non-monogamy were maybe not quite what she had initially said they were. So there's some, I guess, dishonesty there in a sense of her original desires for going this direction. So
and she may have also been trying to figure them out too, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm sure that was part of it. I don't believe for a second that her reasons were totally disingenuous. I think she definitely wanted it to a point, and just took some time to discover more about herself and what she wanted. Yeah.
Sure. Have you guys still felt being able to go through some of the conversations that, led into poly, and through the couple of years that you guys were poly together, have made being able to talk about things through this stage of it easier, or has it complicated it even more, do you think?
It's definitely been easier to talk about things. Yeah, we're still very open with our communication and discussing logistics, especially if I want to go on a date with somebody or things like that, or times that she's going to see her boyfriend.
Okay.
So yeah, our communication skills are definitely staying pretty good for the most part. Yeah.
So even though you guys are separating, it sounds like, are you planning to continue to live together, and it sounds like potentially raising a family together?
Well, we're currently living together. She is planning on moving out and getting her own place, and her boyfriend is eventually talking they're talking together about moving in together. So for right now, she's going to move out and get her own place, because she definitely wants to be apart from me, but we are fully committed to co-parenting the kids together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's really fascinating. And I mean, that says a lot for you guys that you're able to go through something like that and continue to live together and still coordinate dates and other types of relationship things while balancing a family. I mean, that's not an easy thing to do. So no. I give you a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, it's been interesting. Even with the divorce, we didn't go through the courts. Well, we had to for the legal documents and everything, but we went to a mediator who's also a lawyer and just sat down across the table from each other and hashed everything out. It took about 3 or 4 hours, and signed all our documents together and filed. And it was cheaper that way. Better for everyone involved, especially the kids. We didn't have to drag them through a long, drawn-out court battle.
Yeah.
And we went into it knowing that if this is what we're going to do, it's best to do it in a way that benefits the kids. And, from the get-go, it was her decision to divorce me. And I said, if you're not happy with me, I want you to be happy. And let's make this as painless as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's not an easy thing to do, but it sounds like, all things considered, you guys have been so far able to move through it with some amount of grace.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Are you guys out to any of your... Did you guys come out to any of your friends and family when you started going through the transition to non-monogamy? And has that been able to maybe provide some type of support system for you too?
Yeah, definitely. What's really cool is a lot of our friends are from the poly community now that since we've been non-monogamous for over 2 years now. We've developed a lot of close friendships in the community, but some of our existing friendships from before do know about our relationship status. Not all do, but some do, and they've been largely supportive. We've gotten a couple of people who just are absolutely disgusted by it, think that we've destroyed everything that's holy and righteous and we're going to hell, but...
Disgusted by poly itself, or an opening relationship, or by the fact that you guys are separating, or all of it?
All of it, really, but mostly the non-monogamy and having an open relationship. That's mostly... Most of our friends that we have told are cool with it.
Right.
But there have been a few that are like, that's just gross.
It sounds like some of those may have been residual friends from back when you guys were going to the church more often. Is that true? Or were these just normal, I don't know, I'd say normal non-church friends, but I guess friends that were outside of the church to begin with.
Yes, most definitely. Those are definitely the ones that have had that reaction.
Okay. Looking back on this, is there any advice that, like, from today, looking back to 3 or 4 years ago when you guys started down this route, maybe advice that you would give yourself or to anyone else that's newly getting into this now that you've got some experience under your belt? Maybe some advice that you would give? Yeah,
absolutely. Communication is huge. I can't state it enough. And we hear that over and over, on podcasts and books and stuff like that. It can never be stated enough. Communication is huge. And being fully and completely honest during your times of communication, that will make or break the situation.
Okay, yeah. Did you guys have any strategies or ways that you approach the communication to help make it a little easier? Because I know sometimes early on it's obviously not something we're programmed to do. Did you guys find any ways that made it easier for you?
Yeah, we kind of set some ground rules where we just gave the floor to each other to say fully and completely what was on our minds. Without interruption. So talking about what's going well, what's really stressing you out, what's frustrating you about having the open relationship, anything you would like to see happen different. And we just kind of gave the podium, so to speak, to that person and just wait and listen. It didn't always work just perfectly like that, but for the most part, it worked really well.
Sure.
Right. And listening to those sometimes hard conversations. Yeah.
Listening to the hard conversations is crucial, because even though you want to pipe up and say, no, wait, it's better to just listen and hear it out and take it in. Even amongst all the jargon and everything, there's always some morsels from every conversation.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
There's always stuff you just need to hear.
Right.
Yeah, so that's one piece of advice I would definitely say. And also to do a lot of deep soul searching and make sure that your reasons for becoming non-monogamous are very, very clear. Make sure that you are really doing it for the right reasons.
Right.
Because if there's any ulterior motives for becoming non-monogamous, it will eventually come to light, and it may not be pretty.
I guess ultimately, just out of curiosity, it sounds like you had said earlier that non-monogamy wasn't necessarily the reason that you guys wound up getting a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back on it, do you regret opening up your marriage, or are you ultimately happy that you went down this path because now you feel like you've sort of found the relationship model that ultimately fits you better? Yeah,
that's an awesome question. And yeah, looking back, I don't regret it at all. Neither one of us do either. We've both said that. We've definitely found what suits us best. And for me, looking back even over my life, I feel like I've always kind of been non-monogamous in a way. Growing up, I would say probably 70 to 80% of my friends were all girls. I was always very, very friendly and open with women. I've always felt more comfortable having relationships with women. I tend to be a little bit more on the emotional side as a guy, and so I tended to gravitate to women a lot more because they listen a lot and they're very, very compassionate and understanding. Not that guys aren't. I do have a lot of guy friends as well, but they tend to be more of the emotional type of guys as well who just kind of relate more on that level. And even throughout our marriage, I was always attracted to other women, and I was always embarrassed about it, kind of felt guilty about it, but there was just something in me that couldn't pull myself away from being attracted to other women. It wasn't anything about my wife. I was fully attracted to her, loved her deeply. I still do, and it wasn't just sexual, the ways I was attracted to these other women. I was just attracted to them as whole people. I just found myself attracted to other women and always felt guilty about it. And now looking back, I kind of realized, you know what? I've kind of always been this way.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sure some of those feelings were somewhat confusing throughout your marriage, because you're taught that you need to be monogamous and that's the way you were doing it, but you aren't even allowed to have those conversations. Like you said, you felt guilty and you didn't even, I would assume, want to bring it up because it's just not supposed to be part of your relationship or conversation with your wife.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there was a time in our marriage early on where if I had said anything about those feelings, even remotely, it would have destroyed us, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So I know you mentioned you guys, when you started into non-monogamy, you jumped into dating separately. Did you ever consider going down more the swinging route and just playing sexually with other people together, or separate?
Well, it's interesting. We before we went into non-monogamy and even about a year into our non-monogamous journey, we didn't really even know much about other forms of non-monogamy like swinging or things like that. So we never even thought about it. It never crossed our minds. Okay. And now that we know more about it, definitely very supportive of people who are into swinging, but it's not really, well, I guess at least for me, it's not really my thing. I develop emotions too easily.
Yeah, at least that's what you said. Yeah.
I do. And so for me to just have a sexual relationship with somebody and have that be it, just doesn't work for me. And I think that may be partly why I have a harder time finding people to date. It's, I told the woman that I've been seeing the other day, I said, if I just wanted somebody to fuck, I could probably find that. Right. Right. Yeah. But I want more of that emotional connection. I develop those feelings too easily. So, yeah. So swinging probably wouldn't work for me. And there are forms of swinging, I think, where it's a little bit different than the typical, you go to this club or this party and you just fuck other people and then you go home. I think there's different forms of it, but I'm really not too familiar with the swinging lifestyle to comment on it. So I'm definitely supportive of it. If somebody's into swinging, that's totally cool with me. It's just not really my thing.
Right, yeah. No, and I think it's, everybody sort of has a little bit different spin on it. We like to meet more people that we can be friends with, and there's people who prefer purely anonymous, show up to the club and meet somebody that night, have sex with them, and never see them again. I mean, it's sort of everybody finds what works for them, and more power to them, right? So. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And I'm open-minded about it. I mean, I'd be open to maybe attending something like that. It's interesting, though. One of my friends in the community, he was telling me that for single guys, it's like $100 for one of those parties or something like that. They really charge single guys, which is understandable, because the single guys tend to, or at least the stereotype is that single guys are more of the stalker types at those parties. I don't know.
I think it's even less. So that it's just that I think the thing that they're trying to cut down on is having 100 guys for every 3 women kind of dynamic. And so typically what you see is, maybe a couple, it's $50, single women are free and men are 100 or 150. So they double or triple the price of a couple for a single male. And I think it's not necessarily that, it's the men are creepy. It's just they want to make sure that if you want to be there, that you really want to be there, or you just want to cut down on the sheer number of men showing up. And I don't know. It's a raging debate, I think, within the community itself on whether or not that's fair or right. And
because I think it also comes down to having, unfortunately, in our society, women don't always feel safe, and I think that's a big thing too. Is women need to feel safe in those situations, and having a better balance, or a balance of women, guys, and girls at a party is important.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I totally agree with that aspect of it, and it's really important for everyone, especially women, to feel safe. And I do know, at least from what I've been told of the swinger community, the swinger community has not always been really strict on consent. At least from what I've been told, and I could be totally wrong on that. So consent's become much more public recently, and I think rightfully so, and it should be, because consent is absolutely crucial.
Right. Yeah, I think we've had, ever since we've been doing it, it's been heavily emphasized that, if you don't ask for consent, you might get your ass chewed out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're not really welcome in those communities and areas that if people don't respect your boundaries, then you're not welcome. But that's been our experience. Thankfully, we've only had good experiences, mostly with consent for the most part.
So
that's good.
I had a question. One of the things that comes up fairly often in the swinging side of things is the topic of safety and safe sex and STIs and the communication around that. Mm-hmm. How do you handle that on the poly side of things, at least for yourself and for the partners that you're within your community?
Absolutely, yeah. It's using protection is absolutely crucial. STI testing on a regular basis. I go about every 6 months. Mm-hmm. It's been a little longer for me than that since my last one, just because I haven't had any sexual partners recently since my last test. But I try to go about every 6 months. I don't usually ask my partners to prove it, show me the paperwork. If they say they got tested, unless I have some specific reason that I shouldn't trust them, sure, I take their word for it. And if I don't trust them, I probably shouldn't be dating them anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But there's other people that ask for the paperwork, and I respect that too. Right. You can never be too careful, especially as prevalent as STIs are.
Yeah. Is it a pretty common conversation that you're seeing within the community on the poly side? I mean, our exposure to the poly community is fairly limited, so we're just kind of curious. Is it something that's a pretty common conversation and it's not really stigmatized to bring it up and ask?
Absolutely. Yeah. Everybody's got a different way of going about it in their conversations and things like that. Some people talk about it on the very first date. Some people wait until they've gotten to know someone and they think they're going to be a long-term, or at least a longer short-term partner or whatever. And they'll say, hey, we should talk about protection and stuff like that. But yes, absolutely, it's a deal breaker. It's a hard deal breaker.
Right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
No, thanks for the insight. Because again, we're fairly limited on our exposure into the poly side, and that's something we're trying, by doing this podcast, hoping to hear from more people on that side of things. So it's always good to hear your experiences and what you've seen in your community. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Glad to help out.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I guess to wrap things up here, do you have a resource or a resource or two that you found particularly useful to you as you've been exploring polyamory?
One book that I started the physical book and I just couldn't get into it, so I got the audio book instead, was this book called Sex at Dawn.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And really, really good book, but it's one of those books that you just kind of have to chew through it at a very slow pace. Like so much information.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. A lot of detailed information.
So that, the book More Than Two, I've been meaning to read The Ethical Slut, but I haven't yet. And then I listen to a lot of podcasts. For the longest time, I only knew Poly Weekly, Polyamory Weekly. So I listened to that on a pretty regular basis, and then I discovered Multiamory podcasts, and then I discovered I was just searching podcasts for polyamory and non-monogamy on iTunes, and I ran across Monogamy Disrupted with Malik and Nadia.
Yeah.
And then as I started following them on Twitter, I ran across you guys. So...
Well,
it was kind of that chain reaction.
Yeah.
You do. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they're fantastic. So
they are. Yeah, I love their podcast. So, and I've been really impressed with all the poly podcasts that I've listened to, all four of those that I mentioned, which include yours. And, it was kind of funny. And sorry, this is going to be a side note.
No, that's
But one of the other episodes I listened to where Phoenix and Beast were talking about going to Dragon Con to meet people.
Yeah.
That would totally be me right there. I would totally be the geek at Dragon Con, wondering, looking around the room and thinking to myself, oh, I wonder who's Polly here. You know, that would totally be me. So when Phoenix said that, I about died. I was laughing so hard because that
she'll
would
be
be
happy
me.
to hear that there are people having sex at Dragon Con.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because
That's awesome.
I'm a big fantasy geek and stuff like that, as you know. So that would be me right there. Yeah, I haven't been to Dragon Con, but now maybe I better go, right?
Right?
Yeah, you might want to book it for this year.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we'll put links to all those podcasts and books in the show notes for anybody who wants to follow up on them. And I guess we wanted to just say thank you for coming on the show and reaching out to us and having a pretty raw conversation with us.
Thank you for sharing a lot of personal details with us.
Hey, you're welcome. I'm so glad to talk with you guys. I'm pretty excited. This is kind of my first. It's not a coming out necessarily because it's not a real public podcast, but it's kind of my chance to kind of be a little bit public about it. It's kind of fun. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah,
well, you guys are great.
Oh, we appreciate it. Well, maybe this is the start of your circuit. This is going to be the big break for you.
Right? There you go. Yeah.
So
today normalizing non-monogamy, tomorrow the world, right?
Yeah, maybe you'll be on the Ellen Show, or I guess Oprah's not around anymore, so probably not Oprah. But
no.
Right?
So, well, thank you again for coming on, CJ. We really appreciate the time and the honesty. It was a great conversation, so thank you.
Yeah, you're most welcome. Finn, Emma, you guys have been awesome.
All right,
Namaste.
Appreciate it. All right, have a great
Bye.
evening.
Hi again. Thanks to CJ for the amazing interview and for really opening up and sharing some of his, kind of his story and a vulnerable part of his life. We really enjoyed talking to him and hearing what he had to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And we wish him the best of luck and the best of luck to his wife. And thank you again, CJ, for reaching out. And we just wanted to encourage anybody else who might be interested in sharing their story to reach out to us.
Which you can do at our website at normalizingnonmonogamy.com.
Or Twitter. Or you can call Emma at...
Yeah. Don't give out my phone number.
The other thing we wanted to just real quick mention, next week we've got an interview with the Bed Hoppers.
The Bed Hoppers.
And...
we can't do English accents.
Nope, I can barely do an American accent. So we will see everybody in a week.
Bye.